NetSparker, the developers of desktop and cloud-based web application security scanners that enable you to automatically identify vulnerabilities in your web applications and web services. NetSparker scanners employ a unique and dead-accurate vulnerability scanning engine that automatically verifies vulnerabilities with a proof of concept. For more information, visit them on the web at netsparker.com or email them at contact@netsparker.com. ProXPN is the leading VPN service offering free accounts, excellent premium features, and an outstanding commitment to privacy and security online. Use the discount code WEEKLY and save 50% off for life. Tenable Network Security, creators of Nessus, the world's best vulnerability scanner. Jumpstart your security program today and evaluate Security Center CV, the continuous monitoring solution. For more information, visit them on the web at tenable.com. Welcome back, everyone, to Security Weekly. This is the security news for this week. I'm here with Larry and Michael Santarcangelo, whose name I can say consistently correctly for quite some time now.
It's all that lovely Larry is impressed.
It's all that Santa Cangelo that you've been eating.
It's Santa Cangelo. Are we ready to start talking about hacker summer camp planning?
Oh my God, yes.
Yeah, because we can't wait to go out there.
The DEF CON room block is already sold out.
Really?
Yep.
You'd think they'd get a bigger room block.
You'd think.
You love DEF CON, though, Larry.
I do.
There's a lot of people that won't go to DEF CON. They just don't like it.
Yep, and that's cool.
Yeah, like if it's your thing, it's your thing, right?
Yeah.
But so you should start planning now, is what you're saying. So this article came out in a very timely manner.
Yeah.
Have you made your DEF CON plans yet?
Nope. Nope. Let's put it this way. CFP just opened last week.
Are you CFPing for DEF CON this year?
I am.
Are you going to do a panel or are you going to do something?
I'm going to do the panel. I haven't decided if I'm going to do anything else yet.
Okay.
But if I do, I get a very short amount of time to do it. So,
Santarcangelo, what's your planning for conferences? You do any planning?
He's planning not to go.
Yep, I was just gonna
planning not to go.
I mean, it's I'm finding myself in a place, but it's odd because I've for a couple of years taken a break from all the conferences, and I'm starting to dip my toes back in the water. But my new plan now is fly under the radar and then just catch up with people when I'm there. So, like for example, I'll see you InfoSec World. I'll carry your bags in when you check in because I'm a nice guy like that, and you asked for it.
Love you.
And then it's I just kind of soak them in now. Different than I used to. So I plan less. I just kind of let it unfold.
I got you. Yeah, you have that strategy. I hope that's working out for you because it's a different strategy. Sometimes we need to play with different strategies.
Well, I tried the planning stuff before, and it wasn't getting me. I mean, I guess it worked. I don't know. I don't know if I burned out on conferences or just needed to back off. But now I'm kind of more interested in finding people that I enjoy connecting.
I think I like this article because it talks about the new conferences.
Yep.
Not so much the new conferences, but the new things that are happening at conferences and how you have to plan your time. I mean, before, we could just go to DEF CON. We could maybe listen to some talks, or we could go to, ShmooCon and listen to some talks or whatever. And there was always activities, but now there's activities in villages and networking and talks and parties, which are all part of the conference experience, and I feel like if you don't plan, you might miss out.
Yep.
You got FOMO?
A what?
FOMO, fear of missing out.
Yes, I do.
And that plan may be just as much as going and going to wing it.
Yep, that is definitely a plan. And I've done that, and then every time I come back, I'm like, wow, I wish I had more of a foreplay.
Yeah. I missed that.
But see, there's a distinction between winging it and letting it unfold, right? I mean, so maybe what the core of it is do you have a purpose when you're going there? Is there something that you're looking for, whether it's connections or it's knowledge or it's experience? And so maybe if I can add some subtlety to what it is that I do, I'm interested now in learning. So if there's a good talk, but look, some of these talks, they look good. But you show up and you're like, wow, you're just going to read slides to me?
I know. I've been there. I've been there, dude. I know.
So what I do now is I kind of sense out the things that are worth it. And I look to just surround myself with those experiences. If I miss something cool, doesn't matter if I got something good out of it, right? Like I I don't worry about what I missed. I focus more on, did I use my time successfully? Am I better tomorrow than I was today?
Have some goals before. What you're saying, Mike, is before you go to a conference, have some goals. What do you want to accomplish there, and then make your plan around that. And if your goal is just to go hang out and be social, sometimes when I go to a conference, my sole goal is I just want to go hang out and be social. You know. Like, and that's all I want out of this conference is just go hang out and catch up with everyone and see what they're doing, right? Like, my plan for DerbyCon this year is totally, I just want to go be social. I really do. I really do. Like, if I have to give a talk, okay, I'll go give a talk, but I want to get that shit out of the way long before. Like, I don't want to be writing my slides at the conference like previous years because we've all been there. We've all been there, Larry.
Yep. Yeah, and you know what? That was what was amazing about me going to do this talk for RSA. They demanded your slides
ahead of time,
2 weeks ahead of time, and I said, I'm going to be late. Now, that said, I was only 3 days late, which was end of last week.
Right.
And
so it's done.
I'm done. I'm like, what am I going to do this week?
I just want to go hang out.
And of course, then they came back and like, are you sure you're going to be able to do this talk in 50 minutes? There are 70 slides.
Yeah,
like,
that's nothing. You'll be fine.
It's nothing.
But like even for DerbyCon, I'm like, I don't know if I want to stand at the booth and sell T-shirts anymore.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like I've done that for so many years. I'm like, you know what? I kind of just want to go and chill and not have to worry about that stuff. So we'll see. We'll see if that works out.
You're finally coming around to my way of thinking about.
Yeah, because that's your plan for a lot of conferences, Larry. It's just to go hang out
and see some talks,
give a talk.
People.
Yeah, maybe give a talk, one talk, and then go to lots of parties, and then sleep till 12 the next day, or not. Well, you don't really sleep in. No, you just don't sleep.
No,
when you go,
it's the switch. Remember?
Yes,
I'm getting older though. The switch is harder to turn on.
Yes. I can see that, but. He does bring up a good point about if you do want to attend all of these events, it's good. I mean, he talks about staying at the conference hotel versus staying elsewhere. Primarily, this is tailored at DEF CON. Yeah, this is really like a DEF CON focused thing. But I think you can apply that to other conferences as well. So, yeah. Anyway, I thought it would spark some discussion about that, what our strategy is.
Or lack thereof.
Yeah. I don't know if I'll do DEF CON is going to be tough for me this year, though. I don't know. Yeah. I don't know how long I can be gone in the summertime.
That's why you have staff. I was going to say interns, but we don't have interns anymore. We have staff.
We have staff.
We have people.
Team.
More on my strategy next week. Next week you'll hear news that might change my strategy for a lot of conferences. So, but we're saving that for next week. So make sure you tune in next week. Paul has some big news.
I'm gonna miss it.
I can't wait.
Damn it!
Shit.
Where are you gonna be next week?
I will be in
Sands Orlando.
Oh no.
No, you won't be. That's before Sands Orlando.
I'll be at
RSA.
I'll be at
is that before
I'll
RSA?
be at in Seattle for business meetings, but I might be able to join in and
join via Skype.
Get like Jay Beal and
I
Mike
haven't talked to Jay Beal
Jimmy
in a
Alderson
long time.
and
Mike I've seen somewhat recently.
Yeah.
Jay I have not seen in a long time.
But just hop on for like a little bit so they can all say hi.
I want Jay to do a dance. That's been my new thing when conferences has for special requirements.
Yes.
I pick someone who I know is involved with the conference, and I make them. I say that they must introduce me via song and dance. That's my new thing.
Interpretive.
I don't know if it's going to backfire on me or not, but
well, the last time you did that, it worked out pretty well.
Well, the last time I had a crazy request, they actually honored it.
Yeah, you got duct tape, Vaseline, and unicorns,
which was awesome. The kids still play with the unicorns to this day.
Nice.
The Vaseline is depleted, but
it's got handprints in it.
I have dry skin, all right? Come on now.
We won't talk about where the dry skin actually is, but
requires daily application.
And you come out of the bathroom with your shirt on backwards.
The production guys are dying over there because that's an inside joke. One of the production guys came out of the bathroom holding a thing of lubrication, Lubriderm, and his shirt was on backwards. And I'm like, dude, I don't want to know. I don't want to know.
Hey, I at least asked to borrow it.
As long as the show looks and sounds good, whatever helps you get prepared for that, We're it's a relaxed environment here.
Yes.
In the studio.
No, it's a judgment-free and pants-free zone.
It is a judgment-free zone. There's not too many rules here in the studio. Now we're way off topic. But You can smoke and drink and swear and play loud music.
Scratch your nuts.
However, there is no Phil Collins or Bon Jovi allowed to be played. In the
rules.
None.
2 rules.
2 rules. It's really it. That's really it.
Yep. I mean, hell, I don't know why he needed to bring the Lubriderm, because the new set has
Oh yeah, right behind. Can you see that? That's a 55-gallon drum of lube. You have to come to the studio to check it out. Look at his face. You see his face? Mike, you haven't lived until you've covered yourself head to toe in lube every day for like a month. And you still have 45 gallons of lube left over.
Yeah, the first glass goes down easy.
Wow. Are we going to talk about security?
So where do we go from there?
Wireless mice and keyboards?
Oh,
is this of any interest to you? Is something new happen here?
Is this the one that you're talking about? Where is that? Which your
My story 5.
Your story 5.
Make me laugh. Now I'm coughing.
Is this? Oh yeah, yeah. This is the one. Yeah. Why do you think I have this little dongle here with me?
Oh,
this is in fact one of the supported dongles for the application, which is crap.
Crazy Radio PA
mouse
dongle?
jack. This is the crazy radio, which I had for the crazy flea quadcopter, but I've been trying to get it to work, and I just found out while we were on the show that the old version of the firmware on this has issues with USB 3. So I've got to flash the firmware with something else first before I can use it. The Mac won't recognize it.
So there's a mouse jack NES controller.
Yeah, that was the first iteration, and they found that it was really bad distance. So we've talked about some of this type of stuff
since the
before.
beginning of time.
Yes.
We've talked about these attacks.
Well, no, we've talked about this recently. I did the talk at DEF CON Wireless Village 2 years ago in the introduction to the Nordic NRF 24L01. It's essentially the same radio.
Okay.
This radio is the NRF 24LU1+. The one I talked about is the L01+.
Okay.
So the LU is discontinued. And the big reason for the LU is that it had built-in USB support, so you could just plug it in.
Where did you get that?
This came with my Crazy Flea quadcopter, but you can get them off of eBay for $25, just like this.
Okay.
So $25 base attack.
And you can inject keystrokes and log keystrokes?
You can do all sorts of fun
What do you do with the
stuff.
mouse? Do you just move the mouse randomly just to mess with people?
You could. You capture mouse strokes. You can.
What would capturing
inject.
mouse strokes get me?
Don't know. But if you could replay them.
There was a joke in there somewhere, but.
Wow. There was a bad joke.
There was a bad joke in there about mouse stroking.
So you can do keystroke injection. You can do mouse proofing injection, forced pairing, all sorts of fun stuff.
I'm waiting for Mike to jump in on this one.
I know. I'm thinking. I got nothing. I'm still thinking about dousing yourself head to foot in.
I know it's a glorious thought, isn't it? No, Mike. I'm waiting for the. Why should I care?
Oh yeah, I already wrote it off. Sorry. I'm sorry. Why should I care?
You went through that line of questioning already.
Yeah, I sorry. I already did that analysis.
So, Mike, why should you care? Because so many people nowadays with both their desktop and laptop computers are using these external mice that are not Bluetooth, and they're not they're Wi-Fi. They're a proprietary quote shock burst stuff, and it's like the cheap Logitech stuff that ends up everywhere because in fact it is so damn cheap. And you know, people use a little travel mice, and what does it do? It allows you to inject and capture both mouse and keyboard keystrokes. So start dumping packets into the air with your passwords and all that fun stuff in it, and we can capture it.
Yeah, but would it turn on your air conditioning in your electronic car? No.
It depends if your laptop is connected to your air
electronic car and you're using a wireless keyboard to do it.
Yeah, you could.
Yeah.
I just don't understand what capturing mouse telemetry does.
It's less about the capturing of the mouse stuff.
Yeah.
It just happens to be a side effect of the same protocol and same dongle.
I gotcha.
They're often used at the same time.
Keystrokes, I understand. We've covered stories like this forever, but still, and I think where Mike was going with this, I have to be in some proximity
So the initial one that they did with the controller there, the NES controller, was about 10 feet.
But 2.4 gigahertz.
And the 2.4 and this one with the Crazy Radio has a built-in.
Hold that up for the camera.
Has a built-in amplifier. So and with that antenna, you can get some pretty significant distances away. I wanted to say that I read somewhere, and I could have been talking about something else, somewhere between 1,000 and 3,280 feet away, depending.
Yeah, that's got to be line of sight, though. No obstructions.
Yeah, line of sight. So, like, if somebody's using their laptop,
so if you're up on a mountain and you're looking down into the valley at somebody who's
using their laptop in a field,
yeah.
But still, even with line of sight, you're getting a couple hundred feet away. You go and do that in the lobby of some organization.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. I'm not suggesting anybody go do it, but I've noticed lately that we're awash with things that are deemed as very serious. This is horrible. We're all gonna die, and it's like, well, okay, yeah.
I don't know. I wouldn't say that this one is the very serious. We're all gonna die, but it's pretty damn cool. And
I'll give you that.
It's definitely a cool factor, but do I need to stop using my wireless keyboard here in the studio, for example?
Here in the studio? Well, what do you type on that?
I definitely don't search for MILF porn or anything like that.
Okay, good. Because if you do, so if I look at that, if you were doing any banking or logging in,
I do
corporate VPN, usernames and passwords.
Yes.
That type of stuff.
I do all that.
I'll park out front tomorrow morning, and but that's
Here's the thing I think is interesting. I think a lot of people sometimes think that because it's running separate, it might be more secure than Bluetooth. And what you're suggesting is that may not be the case.
That is definitely not the case.
All right, that's an interesting point on it.
Yeah, it is significantly less secure than Bluetooth. And quite honestly, if I had my way as to whether I was going to attack Bluetooth or this, I'd pick this any day of the week.
I think if you were parked out, my office is in the back. If you were parked out front, I don't think you'd penetrate all the concrete and obstructions in the building.
Maybe.
To get to that.
You might.
Now, there's a window in my office.
Yep.
I think you probably have a pretty good
chance of hacking right in the back of the
directional antenna pointed at my window.
Yep.
You might be able to sniff my keyboard.
Yep. Might not even need the directional antenna. This might be enough to do it.
But don't forget, if I see someone with a laptop with an antenna, you're in line of sight with me. So is the scope of my rifle.
But you got to see me, and I don't see any rifles here.
Yeah.
But yeah, and it's probably pretty. You're working in a corporate office.
Yeah.
It's
near a window. I mean, I hate to sound ridiculous like that, right? But
and you know what, Mike? I think you brought some great discussion to this about why do I care, and it's a great question as to why do I care, and I think it's a perfectly valid attack that. I think we're just starting to see the advent of this type of stuff, and it's only going to get worse, especially with the increase of proprietary protocols for wireless and more Internet of Things stuff.
Yeah, I as I've been processing it deeper now, looking at it, because you're right, it's cool. When I work with startups, one of the things that I like to ask them is, so what happens when somebody comes and they try to play with it? And they always say, who would do that? Well, you don't know the people I hang out with.
Yeah.
So they will
send them our way.
Somebody will
have them send us sample products, and we'll gladly.
But what's fascinating is, when you think about it, now we tend to think these huge companies don't go through the process, but they go through the exact same process. Somebody is tasked with come up with a way to do this. They get very excited about it. They've figured out how to make the burst work, and they're worried about fine-grained access and ease of use and setup and configuration. And they don't tend to say stuff around security because, like Paul's asked a bunch of times now, what do I care about your mouse movements? That's irrelevant to me. But, it started as mouse, and we go, oh, you know what? I can just tack keyboard on top of that. Yep. Well, and I can just, and then they go, well, who would hack that anyway? And so I think what we're learning from it then is that if we're in the creation side of it, we need to get better at least injecting an early question to go, yeah, but what if? And when somebody goes, well, that's never going to happen, go, yeah, I know. But what if? Just, ask it again and go, let's just spend an hour on it and let's see where it goes. But there's a flip side to it too, which is I think we need to get a little bit more better at asking some of these questions up front. So if you get into the purchasing side of it, or if you're in security and you start to understand how procurement goes, it might be willing to say, hey, when we spec out new hardware, do we ask these questions? And again, I'm not saying that you go in with the iron fist and go, well, we're not going to do this anymore. It's more of a, did anybody ask? Did we think? Did we test? Is there a concern to it? And that's where when somebody goes, well, what's the real risk? I don't know. If you're telling me that this is a better price for us as an entire company relative to this, okay, cool. But at least what I'm tracking when we do all these stories is we need to get better at asking those questions.
Mm-hmm.
Mike,
but not authoritatively though, right? They're not trick questions. It's just going, I don't know. Let's have a conversation.
You said something very interesting, and I want to see if you and
the
listener, no, not that, you or the listeners agree with me. When you're sitting with a software developer or engineer or an architect, and you present to them a scenario where someone could hack into their stuff, and their response is, well, who would do that, or why would someone do that? I'd say 99.9% of the time they've created something or engineered something that has some serious security flaws because they've showed their hand and their mindset is not thinking about, well, how would someone do something evil with this or take advantage of it in some way?
Who cares?
It's like they're showing their mindset of how they view security in the response to that question.
Hey, but hey, this works, and look at it, it's so cool.
Yeah, which is great. But it's
which is also how they tend to be compensated. I mean, it's one of the things I tell when I tell security leaders is, look, you've got a set of pressures that nobody else in the organization understands. You've got demands nobody else in the organization understands, no other leader has. But you could probably make that claim for the marketing person and for the salesperson, and so what happens is, you go to the developers or you go to the business group and you say that. And to them, what they heard was, oh, you're going to stop me. Oh, you're going to put up an obstacle. Oh, crap. No, stop. So the way I've gotten around it is I say, hey, tell me how it works and tell me what you're worried about. Right. And not hackneyed crap, not what keeps you up at night. I did this one time. I had a guy absolutely convinced, look, we're a manufacturing shop. This could never happen. We have so many checks and controls that when this final blah, blah, blah part is made, we're good. And I said, no, I'm not worried about the part. Tell me about your database. How do you guys manage it? Are you guys just in time? And he said, yeah. I said, cool. So if somebody came in and they just started randomly changing stuff in your database, but not that you'd see it. So one thing ships a day sooner than it's supposed to. One thing shows up a day later. Instead of 3, there's 2. Instead of 2, there's 7. Stuff that I said, how likely are you to catch that? He said, not very. And all of a sudden he slows down and you watch his eyes kind of spinning. And he's going, and he turns sheet white and he goes, okay, so I'd probably be fired by Friday. And you go, okay. So
should we fix this problem or should we come up with some solutions? Or
by the way, and that's the right question to ask, lovely Larry, because what happens is a lot of times is that when people start to connect the dots then, and I think unfortunately we're doing this a lot in security, we find something, go, oh my God, we got to do this now. Well, hold on. It hasn't happened. Now you see it, of all the things you need to focus on. How big a risk is it? And where we have an opportunity in the space is to get better at helping people understand the priority. In the context of everything that you need to focus on, I mean, are you likely to get fired by Friday? I hope not. And if you are, then this is probably, let's push this up the stack. But if not, what do we need to do? So that's where I like that question. Instead of just jumping in and go, yeah, all right, I got you. We could solve it. You go, okay. Yeah. Well, now that we've looked at a potential angle, let's talk about how realistic that is and what we can do to help you out.
Yeah. So, Michael, one of the things that I think you said was great was that about the entering of the barrier. And I think one of my former bosses many years ago, when I was starting to go down this road of security, who wasn't really a security guy, said security cannot be about saying no. It has to be about saying yes. But not just yes. It's a yes, but. And a yes, but this is what the risks are, and who's willing to put their name to paper to accept those risks. Or a yes, but these are some of the things that we need to think about, and these are some of the things that we can do to mitigate them. Some are better than others, and who's going to be the one that signs off as which one we've picked.
Yeah, I think that's brilliant. If you've ever done improv, if anybody's listening ever done improv, the first rule of improv is yes and, as opposed to yes but. And the idea is that you never want to build off of what your partner or your other partners on stage, the other players as they call it, are doing. So you never go, no, Larry, or yeah, but no. You always go, yes, and and then you can add whatever you want to it. And you can twist it any way you want. Well, so the point that I'm making there is that instead of saying, yeah, we can totally do that, but you need to understand it. Just imagine changing that to yes. And I want to make sure that you're protected. So let's talk about X. Right? And
yes. And did you read the story about patient monitors altered and drug dispensaries popped in a colossal hospital hack? How was that?
Colossal.
Colossal. I used the word. Well, I didn't use the word. The registry used the word colossal. So take it for what it's worth.
Is this the Hollywood one?
No, this is independent security evaluators who have produced research in the past, which I have cited and read on embedded device insecurities. They examined in tests of 12 healthcare facilities, 2 data centers, a pair of live medical devices. I'm not sure if it was in a lab environment or not. Likely it was. That they could compromise these systems and disrupt patient care. They also dropped 18 USB sticks around hospitals loaded with malware that executed on nursing stations. And they said that they could change the medication dispensary technology, which could kill a patient, as well as basically it sounds like they could spoof the patient monitors so they could say, hey, this patient's fine when really they're dying.
Dead, yep. Dead. Yeah, hey, where was this story a week ago when I was turning in my slides for RSA? Because this is right up there. It's okay. No, it's not a problem. Nope.
Now, what's interesting, Larry, I want to get your take on this one because you used to work in healthcare.
Yep.
So what's your take? This is not new.
Hell no. Hell no.
It's scary.
Yep. And it's kind of interesting because this is, and some of the stuff what Michael was talking about in the last story and this one too, it very much leads into my story number 6 when we're ready to go there.
Sure.
So, go ahead. Yeah, so finish this one up.
Well, so what I wanted to ask Mike is in here they said something interesting about funding. They said that a large number of these hospitals are underfunded. Where's the quote? It was a great quote too.
Hospital information security is drastically underfunded.
Thank you.
Training flawed at all levels.
Yes.
Networks are insecure and policy and audits largely absent and at best flawed when they do exist.
Is that really are those really the problems? Are those the symptoms or are those the result of what's really going wrong here?
I love it when I'm rubbing off on you guys.
I'm totally. I was totally channeling Santa there. Did you see that?
Rubbing off on you. Yeah, that's exactly what It's kind of like. Do you guys remember when we did the story about Uber and the $1 billion valuation, and we talked about so they were all excited, right? We're gonna set aside 10% for security,
right?
Okay. I mean, great. Why? And so, this is, I think what we're finding is that people are paying more attention to healthcare. But unfortunately for those in healthcare, we're paying more attention to healthcare politically. We're paying more attention to healthcare as a society. We're paying more attention to healthcare in terms of technology. And we're putting more dependence on it. And therefore, that means that attackers are also paying more attention to healthcare. So, a lot of this stuff isn't new, but I think the way you asked it is exactly the way that I look at it, and to say, well, it's drastically underfunded. Well, what's the right number? Training's flawed. Okay, but hospitals today are still largely rewarded and funded and compensated based on patient satisfaction and JCO scores and that type of stuff. And if you go talk to the physicians, by the way, they're pissed. They don't feel that so when you start breaking the hospitals down, you talk to the administration, they're contentious. You talk to the doctors and professional medical staff, they're contentious. You talk to the techs and the support folks, they're contentious. All 3 groups aren't working well together. And so, what's the problem that we're trying to solve, right? We want people to be healthier. Great, cool. That's nice, but I don't know. What makes me nervous about stuff like this too is, all right, so our healthcare systems are bad, our cars are bad, all our networks are bad, our energy and powers, geez, it's all bad. Why do we get up?
So hold on. Let's say focus on the healthcare aspect of it. I think that a lot of the attacks that we're talking about from this article and previous stories that we've covered are pretty random ways to hurt, not necessarily profit from, but hurt random people. And I think the likelihood of those attacks are pretty slim.
Yep.
It has to be a targeted attack or someone who's willing to take the risk that, look, if you rob someone of money or hack into someone's thing and steal some money out of their bank account, one person, FBI's not going to come knocking down your door. When you get into larger organizations, they're going to come after your organization, right? But if you are starting to kill people, you're going to go like right up on that, the FBI cybercrime list. Like you're going to attract a lot of attention to yourself, and for what gain or benefit, right? Unless someone is paying you to specifically take out, and you're like an assassin that uses. But again, this is all pretty like random stuff because all of us get in our cars every day, right? All of us use power every day. All of us use our computers every day. We all don't go to the hospital every day, right? It's a very opportunistic attack just in the nature that you may not know when someone goes to the hospital, I mean, you might, but then you have to seize that opportunity. So all the pieces don't line up, I think, for a lot of attackers to take advantage of these attacks. Certainly now, it could,
unless you start to monetize it.
Oh, unless you monetize it,
and then we talk about the Hollywood hospital hack, where they deployed one of those CryptoLocker type things throughout the hospital and affected patient care, and now it's monetized. And they paid.
And I think it's actually the perfect
they will pay because they're a hospital and patient care trumps everything else. Like that, I can see.
It's interesting because that's one of the stories I put up, and at the risk of being self-serving, it's a story I wrote, but it was something I wanted to bring up last week and talk about, so we can get to it in good time. But I looked at that and I went, wait a minute, they paid? You got to be kidding me! And so I started talking to some DFIR experts, and they're like, yeah, that's actually, dude, ransomware is not what it was 2 years ago.
There's been a resurgence of ransomware. I had a story about ransomware. John Strand, I think, is giving a webcast, and I think his topic is ransomware.
And I talked about it 2 weeks ago when I was here. About the potential,
you gave a great example of ransomware.
Theory that all the folks from the OPM hack are out of jobs.
And what was my story about ransomware? Oh, I had one from Computer World on ransomware. That wasn't your article, right, Mike?
I don't know. Was it this week? It might have been.
No.
Companies pay hush money.
No, it wasn't you. But companies can face ruin if sensitive data is dumped on the internet. Therefore, they're paying bounties. He interviewed Mandy and some other people.
But I mean, so if we go back to it, then I think there's validity in saying, are there opportunities here? Yes. Is there high pressure here? Yes. And so now the problem is, if I had to look at what to do, so I'm in that situation, and look, whether I like it or not, most of our colleagues feel that they don't have enough support, they don't have enough budget, they sure as hell don't have enough time, they don't have enough people, they don't have enough talent, and now you're telling me I got all these other things to worry about. It's a delicate balance. I'm comfortable with the disclosure and knowing about these things, but now I've got to come up with a way to rapidly understand and prioritize them in the never-ending list of things that I need to get done, and explain that to the board of directors and everybody else, and get the hospital staff and all of the contractors and everything else on board. There's no question it's a tough challenge. And as the criminal element figures out how to monetize that, it's going to get tougher. So let's go back to some of the other conversations we've had today. We need to get better about defining the problems we're trying to solve, and then selecting solutions that help. We've started sometimes talking about startups on the program. That, look, if you're in the startup or people that are doing startups, do them a favor, ask them some questions about this. I don't think it's insurmountable. I don't think all hope is lost. I think that the world is shifted. This is why I rail against calling it gaps all the time. Gaps is such a weak way of thinking about it or talking about it. The world has changed. My kids still don't believe me that I didn't have an Xbox growing up, and that I didn't have an iPod, and they demand to know what color it was. the world that we have now is so different than the world that we were in 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago. But it's starting to be, I take a lot of briefings, and I'm really surprised lately at the number of dogmatic approaches that we continue to take that really haven't worked in 20 or 30 years. But this is the year. Just hold on. This year it's going to work. No, we got to change.
Yep. So, Mike, to that, my story number 6, and Paul, I know you're looking at stuff over there. And
this is an interesting one.
Yeah, and I get about halfway down, and I think this is really great because it talks about the OPM hack, and basically saying, hey, we need the folks that we're talking about is hey, we need more cybersecurity, and to
did they spell cybersecurity wrong on purpose?
Maybe.
Okay, just checking.
So we go and talk about the quotes, and it says Michael Daniel, the White House cybersecurity coordinator, who said this incident we're talking about today, referring to the OPM hack, is unfortunately not without precedent. We have to raise our level of cybersecurity in both the private sector and public sector. If it's not without precedent, what happened after all those other breaches? And by the way, this guy leads the league with his capacity for stating the obvious by saying we need to raise our level of cybersecurity. How about actually having some? Because apparently we have none. And here's the best part. Catherine Archuleta, the director of OPM, held a conference call to explain the extent of the damage and their planned response. I'm committed to the work we're doing at OPM. We're working very hard, not only at OPM, but across government to ensure the cybersecurity of all of our systems, and I will continue to do so. She announced that they will be implementing some new measures. How's that for timing? And that the victims of the breach would receive, you guessed it, free credit and identity theft. She's also said she would not resign, despite members of Congress from both parties calling for her head. She resigned the next day. Hey, I'm really committed to all the stings that we're going to do to fix the problem that we should have been really fixing to begin with. I'm out of here.
Well, I mean, she resigned. Let's be fair, because this was always fancy to me. There were two things around this that I thought were interesting with the OPM hack that kind of come back to this too. First of all, when I first read that quote from Michael Daniel, the White House cybersecurity coordinator, we have this obsessive focus on breaches. And I've come to the realization that a breach is a symptom, right? It goes back to what you were saying earlier, Paul. That it's the breach. But what happens, right? It's this predictable knee-jerk cycle. There's a breach. It makes the headlines. And we go, why wasn't it prevented? Why won't somebody do something?
Because if you had been exercising, getting enough sleep, changing your diet, right, you wouldn't be in this problem to begin with.
Exactly.
Yeah, but
inside joke,
but
right?
the devil's advocate, though, no one is completely 100% immune to a breach. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely.
You do pen testing for a living.
Oh my God, no.
Right.
No.
Right.
I could share you some stories.
I bet.
But that's why I keep suggesting too. We got to stop saying, a breach is a foregone conclusion. I know we used to say a decade ago, it's not if, it's when. Look, fine, get it. So anticipate that there's a breach, but that breach is the symptom. I think where we're going to shift as an industry, at least I hope, is that it's not if or when you get breached. It's how quickly do you detect it? How accurately do you respond to it? And do you minimize it? Now, I think that's where OPM and others are holding a flaming bag of dog shit. But when you look at Archuleta getting pushed out, she got pushed out. Yeah, she resigned the next day. Come on, the number of senators calling for her head as a sign of do something. That chorus was so loud that pressure inside of the Beltway, you can't ignore that. By the way, what did they do in result to it? They did a 30-day sprint. I remember bitching about this. 30 days, we're going to sprint. We're going to find all the gaps. We're going to stop. That's not how security works either. So what it fundamentally means
do that 30-day sprint and do it for the next 30 years.
Right. Well, and it's this is when I started writing about the fact that stop thinking of it as a sprint, but then everybody goes, yeah, it's a marathon. Actually, it's an infinite game, and here's the difference: there's not a finish line. So what you do. Are you better tomorrow than you were today? Then you were successful. But what the leader does is they make sure the people around them are better off today than they were yesterday. That's it. And so, it's one of those things where we're looking.
Hold on. So when we're talking about sprinting and marathoning, right? One of my CEO things is like, you need to know when to sprint, you need to know when to pace yourself, and you need to know when to take a break. And there'll be sometimes.
And if there's a shampoo bottle, you need to pace yourself.
That's right. But no, there are some times where you're going to have to sprint. but you can't sprint the whole damn time, right? You got to know when to take a break. And there's times where you need to go at a medium pace, right? So, but does that make any sense, or is that just CEO Paul talking out of his ass?
No, I like it, and here's what I like about it. By the way, I've recently started to connect with some folks doing really good stuff. And these are people that were involved in kinetic actions in the real world. So they get what happens when Intel meets operations and they got to go kick down a door. But they also understand cyber. So they're getting involved now. Oh, guys, we've got good models coming up. And so there's a time to sprint. You get actionable intelligence that there's something going wrong in your network or within your systems.
Sprint.
That's what sprint.
Right.
Yes. And you need to have good velocity, and you need to have razor sharp focus and your best people on it. Hey, by the way, if you're in that situation, how would you like to go through 80% false positive log bullshit data, or would you like to actually have something where you get to go do the stuff that you want to do?
And I will also convey that too, that, you got this actionable data and it's time to sprint. Well, you damn well better have trained and have a goddamn good pair of running shoes.
Yeah. See,
and
you guys are backing up my analogy, my shampoo bottle analogy, apparently.
You better have some lube. Right?
Got plenty right back there.
The interesting thing about this is the guy who wrote this, I mean, look, what I liked about this article, at least, is it's not negative, and it starts out saying, look, we got to stop being defeatist. But then you say, oh, by the way, it's easy. That also is kind of like, look, let me think what my product does and why you should buy it, because it's really easy. So you're discounting all the organizational mindset that needs to shift and change, and that's it's going to take us a generation.
So I think I took away from this that cybersecurity is easy was a total tongue-in-cheek thing, in that it's not really easy, and that his thing is go for the people that are causing the problem to begin with, and just eliminate the threat, which I don't think is. Yep, exactly.
Well, I mean, look, he's got a line, third paragraph from the bottom that says, this requires that we shift our focus from breach discovery and incident response to anticipation and prevention. Look, I already said I like the word anticipation. Prevention. Look, we spend 90% of our stuff on prevention. If you're in fact, I need to go write more about this, but here's something I've started looking at more. If you have a lot of preventative controls, I think that's great. My question to you is, why? Why those controls? And are they returning the value that you expect? Are they helping you with a team? Don't tell me the prevention. Don't tell me that you couldn't possibly get rid of them. Do you test it? Do you have a report card? You're paying so much in licensing fees or maintenance fees every year. There's an operational ongoing cost to it. So when you look at your CapEx, your OpEx, and everything else, in your balanced portfolio of security, are those performing for you? Yes or no? And if you can't answer that, then we need to start figuring that out. And if we need to, as an industry, make that easier, great, let's do that.
I think there's a lot of organizations that put a lot of effort into those preventative measures. And
90% of most budgets are spent on prevention.
But then someone like Larry comes in to do a penetration test, and how many of those people do you successfully breach in the first day?
All of them.
Yeah.
I was going to say 100%.
100%.
All of them.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yep.
Now you start asking the question, how many of those do you get in the first day, but how many of those detect you within the first hour?
That's the right question.
Not many.
10%.
Right. That's the number that needs to come up, in my opinion.
Michael, one of the things that, I don't know anything about it, and I think it's kind of interesting, just because as a former guest, Adam Shostak, my understanding is that he is debuting his new startup at RSA this year for doing security metrics.
Interesting.
And for all of those things, Michael, you just talked about, how is this thing paying out for you?
Yeah, I think Adam does a good stuff. I think Jack Jones is doing some great stuff around that. There's a number of folks that are really looking at how do we quantify this in a usable way. Good. Let's do more of that.
And I think if anybody can pull that off, it's Adam.
Yeah, he's a big brain. No question about that.
He's a good guy. I caught up with him at a conference last year when he was just thinking about doing that kind of stuff or something like that.
He's doing it, man.
He's doing it now. I saw the thing. It's like in full motion now. That's good to hear, 'cause I saw
the thing that it was like, hey, we're doing this new thing. Come see us at RSA. It's finally ready.
Yeah.
This is our debut at RSA.
Yeah, because I kind of called it. He was like, how did you learn about that already, huh? I'm like, I'm in the know about it. At least that. Maybe. But that's cool.
You didn't do the do you know who I am?
No.
All right.
Well, Adam's been on the show twice.
Yes.
Yeah, he's been on the show twice. So he has shared his knowledge with myself, Larry, others, and all of our listeners, which is great. We should probably have him back on to talk about his new thing.
I was just thinking about that.
Yeah. We have people that can make that happen.
Yeah. Paul, it seems like you and I have both got like so many like IoT type stories.
Dude, what? Now I have noticed
I noticed.
No, I noticed since late last year. Like it was like almost as soon as I don't want to say I gave up on the embedded device security thing, but I was like, it's time to change gears.
Time to embrace the fail.
Yeah, I was just like,
you had to take a rest.
I had to take a rest from it. I still feel very passionate about it, and I still believe there's a lot of room to make things more secure and the problems. I think I agree with Bruce Schneier. In fact, I do believe in Bruce Schneier and what he says, that things are going to get worse before they get better.
Yep.
And now I don't know if things are getting worse or if the spotlights are more abundant and are shining a light on all these things that we were like, since day one we'd started the podcast, we were like, wow.
We were thought leaders and we didn't even fucking know it.
We were like, this embedded device, it was before there was IoT. We're like, embedded devices are shit when it comes to security. Now, all of a sudden, late last year, there is just an explosion of research coming on to the scene, the community, in the news, about all these people going, wow. And I don't know, there's more targets, so there's more stuff to get your hands on. The costs have come down. The usage has gone way up.
Yep.
Everyone's got some kind of what they call IoT devices in their houses now.
Everybody wants to tie them to everything else.
Yeah. Yes, and they all want to talk to each other, which is just a recipe for security disaster. They have to talk to each other.
And that was where my story number 2 came out of.
And which was, Larry?
This is the iSuper Internet of shit.
Is this an article?
Yeah, it is seriously an article. So the iSuper iRainbow light bulbs, this guy found that there were some fairly Matthew Garrett.
That's actually a product in iSuper iRainbow.
Yeah, and these
Good Lord, I thought I was bad at naming
programmable
things.
LED light bulbs that they wanted to integrate with smart things and all the home control stuff. So he went and bought some, and he bought the little hub controller for them.
Yep.
And it turns out you plug this into your network, and you can manage it with this cloud app on your iPhone, which was a piece of junk. He sniffed the traffic and started looking at this thing, and he found out that, holy crap, this hub, it's a wireless access point that provides DHCP over wireless and routes all your traffic. And it's a hidden SSID called, like, iRainbow.
iRainbow.
Wow. Oh, so all you have to do is associate to
Associate to an unencrypted wireless network called iRainbow, and you've got free internet. And the packets are so super simple that, like, you include one of these packets and you don't send all the data, and the bulb starts pulsing at 15 kilohertz.
Wow.
And it's running Telnet D.
And it's running Telnet with poorly documented passwords.
I should say I'm surprised, but this is...
No, we're not surprised.
The username is W13733, and the password is GBIGBI01.
Because the person who was creating this had a shipping date as when this programmable LED thing would go live, and they had pressure.
And get this.
Who would do this anyway?
So did the person naming this thing too.
Get this.
Okay, in 15 minutes, come back in my office for the name. And he came back and he's like, fuck it, iSuper iRainbow.
Yep. Get it. Yeah. Get this. Quoting the article, this may be the single worst device I've ever bought. I called the manufacturer and they insisted the device was designed in 2012, was no longer manufacturer supported, and they had no source code to give me, and there would be no security fixers. The vendor wants me to pay for shipping back to them and reserves the right to deduct the cost of the original free shipping from the refund.
Good Lord.
Everything is awful, which is why I just ordered 4 more random bulbs to play with over the weekend.
I thought it was Everything is Awesome.
Everything is awful.
Did I get that song wrong?
Everything is awful.
Yeah, I mean,
that's the IoT theme song.
Everything is awful.
Oh,
shit. We need somebody to record that.
I know we already hashed out the whole Apple conversation. So there's no need to relitigate that. Certainly not now. We'll let Apple handle that. But
well, wait. Apple,
it draws
I saw a
attention.
thing that said Apple wouldn't let the government, get into the phone and they're heroes, but Tom Brady doesn't want to turn over his phone, and everyone thinks he's a jerk and a cheater. How is that fair?
There's a difference, but we'll just sidestep that.
There's no difference.
There's a difference.
Tom Brady's the GOAT. Just get over it.
But the thing to
GOAT!
it is...
GOAT, I say! Greatest of all time. Yes.
Interesting byproduct of all these conversations is we're having conversations about this now. And I think
Finally.
that's well...
We were having conversations about it. It was just with ourselves.
Yeah.
Well, and so there's two interesting points in that. The first of the interesting points is, right. And so a lot of people now that have that knowledge are burned out, and they're a little frustrated because, hey, we've been saying this for 10 years and no one listened to us. Why are you going to listen to us now? But that also goes into my second point, because I've talked to some of these really smart people that are out there. They're the ones on the news, they're the ones making these big statements, and they go, but no one's listening. Well, they're listening. They don't have the context. We need to do a better job of translating. We need to do a better job.
Michael, back to your earlier comment. Why do we care?
What about which part?
Because
nobody's listening. But so why
we shouldn't care? Because why would anyone buy a product called Super Rainbow? Unless it's a kid's toy.
No, I think it's funny. I think that's actually the right question, and I think it has to enter into the dialogue a little bit. Like I'm
going to go buy Hello Barbie, and it's completely vulnerable. Well, why do I care? My kids are going to play with this thing.
Right. No, I think it's a fair point. Right. We've lost our shit over VTech recently. I don't get why. And then they changed their terms of service.
Well, the other stories where Fozcam sends traffic to China. That was a Krebs article about the webcams. I didn't even put it in there because we've talked about that like 100 times before on the show, right? DVRs were also in that list of sending packets to China. So there was the whole train of news stories.
Why do I care?
We've gotten pretty good at like reviewing the news every week because we've done it for 10 years. That I'm sure you do it too, Larry, right? You can see trends. You can see these news organizations in security will all pick up on variations of a theme, and I'm like, yeah, this is a thing that you're reporting on now, but this is something that was 8 years ago. Like this was the thing,
right?
So unfortunately, the answer to the why do we care is not that simple, and in some cases it's because for some folks it's a passion, and other folks it's because there is at some point something that will come that will be a problem and or that could be avoided, and the why do we care then is that we need to go figure out how to size that properly and how to translate that so that we're affecting the things that matter and we're not necessarily wasting time and energy on the stuff that's less important. And I think right now, maybe societally, we don't know what those things are yet, but in the cases of where we see widespread stuff, right, embedded device security, IoT, we're seeing these calls. I mean, we're reporting now these major vulnerabilities because they didn't do authentication, because they didn't encrypt the communication, because they didn't. Okay, these are starting to feel like they're more basic. But by the way, we're still bitching about passwords 30 years later. So I think that the why we care is if we want to go focus on cooler stuff, we got to take care of what these trends that we see. I think these trends represent opportunities. And then so let's go why we care. Because I think that if we can start to address some of these things successfully, we can bring up that level of awareness that we claim that we want, or that level, and I hate that word, so let's talk about literacy and fluency in these types of concepts, and then let's go see what happens as a result of it. But do we need to fix everything? No.
No, I agree with that. I think there's, like in every other industry, right, there's a level of tolerance to...
There's an acceptable risk.
Acceptable performance level, acceptable operating procedures that it can operate in.
If Jack was here,
right?
I'd be bringing up chip and pin right now.
No, so let's go. Can we go a different route? Can we go a different route? Like when you buy a hygrometer, right? Hygrometer... yes, it would. When you buy a hygrometer to measure humidity in your humidor, right? There is an acceptable level of variance.
There's an acceptable level of fail.
Now, what's interesting is and I don't know how closely it mirrors this. Maybe it ties back to our iSuper, iRainbow, right? Which is a very inexpensive solution. Right? Solution. I use that term very, very loosely. If you go buy a really cheap hygrometer, or you use the one that comes with your humidor, your variance on the humidity is going to be plus or minus 6, right? That means if it's telling you it's 70%, it could be as high as 76
or as low as 64.
So when you spend $85 on a hygrometer, your level of variance is like plus or minus 0.001, right? It's ISO certified, and it's awesome.
And you need that for your Swisher Sweets, right?
Yes, Swisher Sweets are very particular about their humidity, Michael.
Yeah, but so let's take this as a good analogy, because I don't know as much about it. So do you find that a lot of people start with something that's simpler because they're not investing as much into their cigars?
It's interesting
and
you asked that.
Habit.
There is a significant consequence to having one of those cheaper hygrometers in your humidor, because inevitably what happens is you're going to come to me and, hey, Paul, you know a lot about cigars. Can you help me out? Either my cigars have mold, my cigars have tobacco beetles, or my cigars are like so dry that they taste horrible, right? So by putting a minimal or no investment into the technology, you end up with this consequence as a consumer that things are bad. When we talk about IoT, is there a consequence when there's security vulnerabilities? Unless someone exploits them, well, there's not a whole heck of a lot of consequence, right?
See, I think that's the important part, number one. I think the other part to that, too, is there's a much tighter feedback loop when you're talking about, right? I spent money on a cigar. I'm holding it in my hands, and, whoa, this is not what I expected.
Right.
And I go seek out somebody that I trust who has that knowledge, and they explain it to me in a way that I understand. And then I go, oh, so you mean there is a difference between the $80 one and the $10 one? Okay, well, I'll buy the $80 one, because we can do that math in our heads pretty quick, and we understand those importances faster. I think that's the right question. I mean, that's why I asked what's the problem we're trying to solve and the why do we care question so much. I get it. Okay, so you told me that I can do this, or I can exploit this, or this could potentially happen when Uranus is in retrograde. Great, wonderful. Is it really a big deal or not? Now, the problem is, in some scenarios, yes. So we've got to get a little better about figuring out what those things are. So does all of this have a consequence? No. Does some of it?
Right.
Maybe. Is there some small slice where we probably really should pay attention to it? Yeah. But then I think
not
the flip to that
is to talk about cigars more, because I like doing that. Not only is humidity something you need to monitor, temperature certainly is just as much of a factor. And now this could be a more significant investment, right? If you keep them in your house, there is a degree of variance in temperature.
Sure.
The lower the temperature, the lower your humidity is going to be. So if your temperature is going down below 65 degrees, 60 degrees Fahrenheit, you're going to start to have issues keeping your cigars humidified. If your temperature is going above 73 degrees Fahrenheit, all tobacco and some foods, actually, we're going to talk about this on my next show. I've been studying this, has eggs from the tobacco beetle.
Yep.
At 73 degrees Fahrenheit, those eggs will start to latch into larvae. The larva will actually make holes and eat the tobacco, right? Because it's like a baby. What does a baby do? It eats and poops all the time, right? Yep. So the larva is eating holes, making Swiss cheese, and it'll actually do the most damage when it's a larva, and then will progress into a full-blown beetle at above that temperature. So that now when you're talking about controlling temperature, now you're talking about a much more expensive, a humidor that can hold even a few hundred cigars can cost upwards of $500 to $1,200 to get in something that controls temperature and humidity. So now you're talking about a much more significant investment. And there's a direct consequence, right, to not storing your cigars properly. You're going to pull them out and you'll be like, why are there all holes in my cigar? Why is there dust falling out of them?
Yep. So same thing when Corinne and I took a bacon making class, that just a couple weeks ago. We talk about, food safety and how long you can leave pork outside of a certain temperature degree range. And it's not individual settings, it's cumulative over like a 4-hour period about, once things start to go not good on you. Right. And if you screw that up and you don't do the proper process, you know what? That's at the end of that rainbow, right?
Bad bacon.
Dead. There's only one test for one home test for botulism.
And you eat it, and if you don't die,
and that's called lockjaw and death.
Good Lord.
So you better get it right.
No pressure.
No pressure.
This is
gonna make some this weekend.
This is why we have an opportunity to be more discerning. I mean, we told everybody for years all the risks and consequences of their payment cards. And I know that we keep talking about the need to foist these externalities back on these companies because it's bad. Just trust me, wink, wink. Yeah, I'm coming around, as we've been talking all night. I go, maybe it's not. I mean, liability zero. In the U.S., the way that we've handled our fraud systems, fraud is at all-time lows. And I don't mean to suggest that at the micro level, if you're the retailer accepting it, you're not going to get screwed at some point. But I mean, if I look at it systematically, maybe it's not a big deal. And we keep saying, well, consumers are stupid. They don't know better. Yeah. So what if the consumers actually aren't stupid? And this isn't a big deal for them, and we carry on. The question is, which of the consequences are the ones that we need to deal with, and which are the ones that are showing and we get concerned? I mean, haven't we talked about, like, why was it once a year we get the baby monitor story? And, some
because there's consequences to that.
Because it captures people's attention. Because you either have kids or kids, and that's creepy as hell to think about it. And so we go, oh, wait a minute. Well, we'll put that on there. Does that make it right or wrong? I don't know. But it feels to me like for a certain period of time here in security, because of our inability to articulate the particular risks in an appropriate level, we've both dismissed people for their ability to understand it, and we've struggled to figure out, well, what is it? And the challenge with that for some folks is it's a freaking existential crisis. Well, if what I do doesn't have this measurable impact, then am I important? Well, just so we're clear, yes, you are important. Your value is not derived entirely on what you do or whether or not everybody understands it. And that's where we got opportunities. I don't know. We can do a pep talk one night when Jack's back.
On a closing note, my contest trivia question for Stogie Geeks is: at what temperature and below
73 degrees
will kill the tobacco beetle or larva, or prevent the larva from?
So if you're tuning in,
we'll kill it, or we'll keep it dormant.
Oh, what?
It would actually, it will actually kill it.
65 degrees and below?
No, 1 degree Fahrenheit or below will actually kill any active. I don't know if it'll kill the eggs, but I know it kills the larva or beetles.
Interesting.
And stops
Does it
stops
disarm
from
the
happening.
tobacco to freeze?
So, if you put your cigars in a Ziploc bag to preserve as much humidity as possible, put them in the freezer for 24 to 72 hours, your cigars, take them out, put them back in the refrigerator, put them in the refrigerator for 24 hours, then put them back in your humidor, your cigars will be totally fine. In fact, you could put them in the freezer for a day, take them out, and light one up and smoke it right out of the freezer, and 99% of the time it's going to smoke fine. But
so your freezer is not at 1 degree Fahrenheit.
You have to make sure your freezer is at 1 degree Fahrenheit or below. Otherwise, you may not kill all of the tobacco.
And many of your home freezers may actually not go that low.
Yeah. Well, mine says that it goes that low because I can adjust mine. But how accurate is the temperature reading? Going back to our previous conversation,
6%, right?
Yeah, I've noticed variances in not only hygrometers but temperature sensors as well.
Very much so.
Yeah.
Yeah, but by the way, I think this whole conversation is very illustrative of the opportunities that we have. Look, this whole Apple thing, the number of people who want my opinion on it or want to talk about it is actually kind of encouraging. Yeah. Now, people feel very strongly about it based on the headlines that they've read, and that's okay. But I mean, look, you're sharing knowledge that now we're all kind of having that conversation. I don't have any cigars. I'm not going to run and do that right now. But, it's going to be in the back of my head. And if I obviously know that if I have a question, I know to call. That's the opportunity we have with security. There's got to be things that we can relate to people that they then say, oh, that's interesting. I didn't know. That doesn't mean they suddenly understand or they're going to go do it. It just means you piqued their interest. You've demonstrated your value. And when they have a question, they'll come back and ask it.
Yep. And you can go that route with folks that I found is that, so here's my advice. And if you'd like to understand the reasoning behind my advice, I'll happily explain it to you. It's all about your level of interest.
Yeah.
And then
keep in mind
whether you have followed my advice is completely up to you.
Yeah, and what I think is interesting about that, and allow me to pay you a compliment, you're an exceptional instructor. So when you say to somebody, look, I can give you the answer or the explanation, let me tell you the logic behind it. Larry, you speak and present for a living. You've been doing this show for a decade. You're one of the top rated instructors in the world. If you can't explain shit, then we have a problem, right? The challenge with that, though, is that sometimes it is challenging and frustrating to try to explain something that's technical to somebody that doesn't have the same frame of reference that we have. You've gotten good at it. And maybe you were naturally good at it in the beginning, or maybe it's learned, but that's also where we have that opportunity. So what I would say to somebody is, there's no pressure that you have to be perfect or that you have to get it right. People will tell you if you get it, as long as you give them that option to say, hey guys, let me give you a try. I'll try to explain it. But if it doesn't make sense, let me know. And if I call it story swapping. If you swap enough stories back and forth, you'll get where you want to be.
That's a good point.
Most of the time.
Yeah, and sometimes you won't.
Yeah.
And then you just call Larry.
Wow.
On that note,
and thank you, Michael.
Yes, it was a very nice compliment. On that note, we're gonna have to end the show.
Oh, real quick.
Yeah.
RSA Social Security Awards, is the voting closed?
The voting is closed.
Okay, so we didn't do that.
Even though my Facebook ad was still running.
I know, that's fucking awesome.
Yeah, the voting is closed. It was opened up to the public, which I didn't realize. But yeah, the voting is closed. Thanks to everyone who voted. And may the best podcast win, I certainly wasn't going to let our friend Patrick at Risky Business get away with an easy win by any stretch of the imagination. I'm going to give him a run for his money, make him earn it, and I'll tell you what.
And same with all those other folks.
I will be the first one to congratulate whoever wins.
Absolutely.
So, excellent. With that, thanks everyone for watching and listening. Thanks to Mike and Larry, of course, for doing the security news, and Jeff from Sans GX. Larry, take us out.
Sorry, I'm grooving to this new music.
It's awesome.
This is freaking awesome. Over and out, out.
Dita, I love it.
Now we dance.
Thanks, guys.
So that music, right? We've been having this problem on YouTube for a long time, and it's even more of a problem now because YouTube's algorithm got better.